Hi everyone, this is Algebra 2, Unit 6 on rational functions, and this is Lesson 2 on graphing. What we're going to do today is actually graph some of the rational functions that we looked at in the previous lesson, and this is actually the handout that I am sending you to do for your practice. And I'm going to do numbers 1 and 3. You have 10 total, and I figured 1 and 3 were good representations of the whole assignment. So we're going to identify the vertical asymptotes, the horizontal asymptotes, the domain, the range, name the transformations, and then we're going to sketch the graph. So real quick, I'm going to do the transformations first because we did that first in the previous lesson. If you look at number 1, there's a negative there. That means that we have a reflection. We also have a number other than 1 as a, and so that is going to be a stretch by 3. We have a value of h of 1. Remember, that is going to be a move left or right, but because it's h, it's going to be in the opposite direction, so we're actually going to move left 1. And then we have a value of k, which is negative 1, so we're going to move down 1. So those are your transformations. Your vertical asymptote comes from h, and so that's going to be in the form of x equals, and that will be negative 1 because remember we do change the sign of h. Your horizontal asymptote is going to be the value of k. That's in the form of y equals, and then negative 1. And once you have those, you know your domain and range. And so domain will be x is not equal to negative 1, and the range is y is not equal to negative 1. Now, let's actually put this on a graph. The first thing that you want to do is graph your vertical and horizontal asymptotes. These are going to be dotted lines that are going to be on your graph, and you're going to draw them vertically and horizontally, and they're going to be guidelines for where you plot points for the actual graph. These are saying, okay, your graph can come very close to this dotted line but cannot touch it. So for the vertical asymptote, that is going to be x equals negative 1. So here's your x-axis. You're going to go to negative 1, put a point, and we're going to draw a vertical line through that point. So here is your vertical asymptote of x equals negative 1. We're going to do the same thing for the horizontal asymptote. It's y equals negative 1, so you find your y-axis, go to negative 1 on the y-axis and put a point. And now we're going to draw a horizontal line through negative 1. So these are the guidelines for your graph. Now, how in the world do you come up with the points for the graph? And I know that you're at home, you don't have a graphing calculator. The easiest way that I can tell you to do this is to make a T-chart. And let's put some values in for x, work it out, and that'll give you the value for y, which will create a point. Now, this graph is actually 2 parts. If you notice, your asymptotes divide your graph into 4 equal spaces, or 4 spaces. Your graph for this particular function is either going to be in the first and third quadrants, or the second and fourth quadrants. And I use the word quadrant just because you know this is quadrant 1, this is quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. So it's going to appear in 2 of the 4 areas. If I look at the actual equation itself, this is a fraction. What I would like to do is see if maybe we could make this a whole number or an integer by substituting a number in for x that will make this become an integer. If I took 0 and put it in place of x, that's going to make that become 1. And 3 over 1, or negative 3 over 1, is something we can work with. So I'm going to put 0 in place of x, and then just over here to the side, I'm going to put negative 3 over 0 plus 1, and then minus 1. Well, 0 plus 1 is 1. Oops. Messed up right there. So now we have negative 3 over 1 minus 1. Well, negative 3 over 1 is negative 3. And negative 3 minus 1 is negative 4. So I'm getting a value of negative 4 for y. Now, I want to choose another point because I want at least 2 points to help me. The guidelines are going to help you. The asymptotes are going to help you in drawing the curve, but the points kind of give you a little more detail. If we put a 2 in for x, wouldn't that make the denominator a 3? And I know 3 over 3 turns into a whole number. So let's try a 2. If I plug in a 2, that's going to be 2 plus 1, which is 3. And that's going to be negative 3 over 3. And then minus 1. Well, negative 3 over 3 is negative 1. And negative 1 minus 1 is negative 2. So the y value for when x equals 2 is y equals negative 2. So I'm going to plot those 2 points. 0, negative 4 is right here. And then 2, negative 2. So I'm going to go over 2, down 2. And as you can see, they fall within this fourth area. So what you're going to do is just kind of curve this from the bottom up, go around to those 2 points, and then go in this direction here to the right. You'll never touch those dotted lines. Now that is only half of your graph. The other half is going to be over here. So when we choose 2 points for the other half of the graph, you want to look from the vertical asymptote toward the left. So if I chose, like, let's say negative 2. If I chose negative 2 for x and plug that in, what is negative 2 plus 1? Well, negative 2 plus 1 is going to be negative 1. So we end up with a negative 3 over negative 1 minus 1. Well, that's going to just change to a positive 3, and then 3 minus 1 is 2. So when I plug in negative 2, I get out positive 2. I'm also going to choose another point from this side of the x-axis. What if we chose, let's say, negative 4? If I put negative 4 in for x, negative 4 plus 1 is going to be negative 3. So that's going to give me negative 3 over negative 3, and then we have minus 1. Well, negative 3 over negative 3 is a positive 1, and 1 minus 1 is 0. So when you plug in negative 4, you get 0. So we're going to plot these 2 points, negative 2, 2, and negative 4, 0. And as you can see, they reflect the first 2 points that we plotted. And so then you just bring it from the left, go through that first point, go up to the second point, and bring it up to the top. And there is the graph of number 1. Number 2 is going to be a little bit easier. Okay, your transformations. You don't have, there we go. We don't have a negative, so we don't have a reflection, but we do have a stretch by 2 because the value of a is 2. We don't have any number with x, so we don't have any left or right movement, but we do have up 1. Okay, so now let's look at the vertical asymptote and the horizontal asymptote. Remember, your vertical asymptote comes from h. There is no h written there, so that means it's going to be a 0. So your vertical asymptote is going to be x equals 0. Your horizontal asymptote comes from k, so that's going to be y equals 1. And then your domain, you're just going to copy the vertical asymptote, sorry about that, and then put a slash to the equal sign, so it's x is not equal to 0. Your range is going to be y is not equal to 1. So now we are ready to graph the asymptotes. If the vertical asymptote is x equals 0, you go to 0 on your x-axis and put a point, which is right there in the very middle. So your asymptote is actually this axis right here. And so just darken it a little bit more. That means your graph cannot touch that axis. Your horizontal axis is at y equals 1, so find your y, go to 1, and put a point. This time it's going to be horizontal, so it's going to go this way. So we've divided the graph into 4 areas. Remember, you're only going to plot points in 2 of the 4 areas. Let's make a t-chart and pick some values for x. Now looking at this is going to be easy. I could choose a 1, and that's just going to be 2 over 1. 2 over 1 is 2. 2 plus 1 is 3. So that's going to be the 0.13. But let's choose another one. If I were to put a 2 right here, that would make that 2 over 2, which becomes 1. And 1 plus 1 is 2. So I have 2 points that will fall in one of the areas. So if I look at the point 1, 3, I'm going to go over 1 and up 3 to right there. So it's going to be in this first quadrant. And then the point 2, 2. So I'm going to go to the right 2 and up 2. So you see how now this is going to go like this. And you don't have to be perfect when you do these, but I do want you to hit those 2 points and stay close to your asymptotes that you drew. So now we know that the second part of the graph is going to be reflected in the third quadrant right here. So let's choose, how about -1 for x? We chose +1. Let's try -1. 2 over -1 is just -2. And -2 plus 1 is -1. So that's nice and simple. And why don't we choose -2? Because I know that's still going to give me an integer. 2 over -2 is -1, and -1 plus 1 is 0. So now we're going to plot -1, -1, which is right there, and then -2, 0 is just going to stay right there on that x-axis, and then you just bring this around, go through your 2 points, and bring it down. And there's your graph.